Hi, I'm Kim Heyman. I'm a freelance writer based out of Orange County, California. Over the last several years, I've had the privilege of interviewing some of Orange County's top business executives and philanthropic leaders. And today I want to share some tips and tricks with you about how to conduct a great interview, one that's going to be great for you, for your interview subject, and result in a terrific article that is more entertaining, more engaging, and more accurate. So here we go. First things first. Okay, so you've got an assignment. Maybe it's from an editor of a local publication or a website, or perhaps a corporate marketing manager has hired you to write a profile. The first thing to do is sit down with the person who's hired you to make sure that you both understand what the end goal of this article is. Like, for example, am I interviewing someone, a CEO perhaps, in context of writing a larger story about the company that they're running? Or am I writing a profile that's going to be sent out or placed on a website that talks about the person's background, their professional background? Or am I delving into their childhood, who their heroes were, what their lifetime goals were? It's really important to get that established right up front because that's going to affect the sorts of questions that you ask. Now, at a later date, I'll get more specific into what sorts of questions go with what sort of end result article you want. But for right now, I'm focusing on the interview. Okay, great. Now you've got your assignment. First thing you do after you've talked to your editor or your marketing manager is research the person online. Find out what articles they've written, times they've been quoted, what their background is. Get to know them a little bit. It'll help you feel more comfortable when the actual interview takes place. Also learn about their industry, learn about their company, learn about the philanthropy that they run. It's good to have an idea of current trends and topics in a specific segment. That way when you're speaking with them, you look like you know what you're talking about. Now, next thing, it's easy to get a little bit intimidated by titles, especially when I was doing it early on, a CEO of a major company. I mean, that was enough to send me into cold sweats. So I developed this technique. You might think it's silly, but it works for me, and you can develop your own sort of technique. But basically what I do is I imagine that person as a little kid, 6, 7 years old, learning to read, hanging out with friends, because I've learned over the years that when you meet people, oftentimes you can see the little kid they used to be in their face. It's in their eyes, their smile, maybe a turn of phrase. And if you picture them as a younger person, before all the titles and the accolades and the honors and the awards and the big name, it really humanizes them and it makes you feel more comfortable. Next, when you get to the interview itself, you shake their hand, you're friendly, you're warm, be sure to smile. Picture that little kid if you need to. What I always like to do is set the boundaries and the expectations ahead of time. I will tell them, okay, this interview is going to last about an hour long. We're going to be covering XYZ, and I do it in a real warm and friendly way so that they don't feel, set on edge or nervous or anything. And the other thing I like to do is make sure that I'm respecting their boundaries. Like, for example, I almost always record my interviews, but I always make sure to ask if it's okay. 9 times out of 10 people say, yeah, no problem. But occasionally somebody will say, I'm not comfortable with that. And I say, no problem. And I understand that because in this day and age, something they say could be taken out of context, maybe words spliced together to make it sound like they said something they didn't. So it's very important that you respect what your interviewee requests of you. So then, getting into the actual interview itself. So if you've prepared yourself by researching the person and their industry, you've hopefully written out some guideline questions ahead of time. It's important to use whatever questions you prepared, not as a checklist, but more as conversation starters. It's not about answering this in a yes or no, blah, 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 blah. It's about engaging them. Because when you get in a real conversation, when you're interested in what they're saying, when you're making eye contact, when you're listening, you're hearing them, people are going to be more forthcoming and they're going to be more natural, more comfortable. I had this great interview once where I came prepared with this list of questions. This was years ago. And the person I was interviewing, he was a top-level exec at an Orange County financial firm who had started a philanthropic movement that had become not just nationwide, but worldwide. And I was very nervous about interviewing him. He turned out to be a super great guy. But instead, I realized early on that just asking him questions in a checklist wasn't working. So I said, okay, great, let's just let him talk. So I said, you know what? Let's forget the questions. You tell me a story. What inspired you? It opened the floodgates, and the resulting article was just terrific. And it was terrific because he and I engaged in a conversation where we were both comfortable, having a good time, laughing. And I was asking things not because it was part of a checklist, but because I really, really wanted to know. So I see that we are getting on over 5 minutes, and on the internet, I know that just doesn't happen. So I will leave off for now. Next time, I will come back with more information about what sorts of questions to ask on certain types of interview. In the meantime, if you have any questions, send me an email. I'm at kim@kimhaymanwriter.com. That's Kim at kimhayman, H-A-M-A-N, writer, W-R-I-T-E-R.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.